Roman numeral 3 on the handout, it has to do with the future of to be, the verb aimé. This is 19.24 on the in the Mounce the Mounce textbook. So 19.24. All right. So just make sure you know where to find that. Here are the forms, and it's important for you to take note of the endings here. Okay, so let's say these together. First of all, future tense of to be, SMI. So I will be, SA. You will be, STI. He, she, or it will be, SAMATHA. We will be, SSTHE. You will be, or y'all will be, and SANTAI. So what do you notice about the personal endings here in the future of a me? Yeah, they are the middle passive primary endings, not the active ones. That may strike you as funny, but if you remember, or not but if you remember, you may remember in the present tense of a me, it's a me, right? SD, S-man, I'm sorry. Yeah, S-man, S-te. Right, these are the primary active endings. Primary active endings. All of a sudden, when we get to the future, we're using the middle endings. Isn't that weird? Why isn't it eso and essace and essay, right? I mean, it could have been that. But remember, sometimes when you go from the present stem to the middle stem, your verb form becomes middle only. And so the future of a me is a middle only verb. And so live with it, suck it up. That's just the way it is. This is the way the Greek mamas spoke. Okay? So don't try to translate this with some kind of a passive meaning, like I will be been or something like that. Okay? You can't do that. It's just I will be, you will be, and so forth. Notice that the forms are identical to the forms of peruamai in the future. Perusamai, peruse, perusatai, right? The only difference here is that you don't have the epsilon here after the sigma in estai. It's not esatai, but estai. All right? So, you want to commit that to memory. You'll see the future forms of a me in the Greek New Testament. So do learn those. Do learn those. All right. Let's talk about the principal parts of verbs. In some Greek tools, like in our grammar here, and other grammars, and not just Mounce, but Smythe's grammar, which is an advanced grammar of not just Hellenistic Greek, but of classical Greek, you'll see glossaries and lists of principal parts of verbs. We talked about on another occasion the English principal parts, which are the principal parts that you use to form all the verbs of the English verbal system. And in Greek, the principal parts that are often given in some of these grammatical tools are the tense stems that are used for all of the verbal conjugation patterns throughout the Greek language. So if you know the 6 principal parts, then generally you would know how all of the tenses are formed in Greek. This is the order in which those principal parts are given. The first one is the present active indicative. These are all indicative forms. The second's the future. Third's the aorist perfect for the fourth, and these are the active ones. The fifth principal part will be the perfect passive, and the sixth is the aorist passive, all because these different tenses use a different principal part. Sometimes that principal part is identical to other principal parts, and sometimes it's widely variant. And you'll need to memorize the odd principal parts when you come across them. So we'll see some of those as we go through the vocabulary at the end of the chapter. All the forms that you're given for these principal parts will be the first person singular form. First person singular form. So let's take a look at some examples of principal parts in the Greek New Testament here, or at least in our grammar. Let's go here to page 5. So here are the principal parts for two verbs, Conozco and akuo. Conozco is to hear, to know, and akuo is to hear or to listen. Okay? So let me actually also introduce you to the appendix that you'll find in the back of Mounce's book. Go to page 370 in the textbook. Beginning on page 370, it's labeled here, this appendix, tense forms of verbs occurring 50 times or more in the New Testament. So these are frequently occurring verb forms. And then if you flip the page to page 372, you'll notice that the verbs are listed alphabetically from top to bottom, but then from side to side in columns. How many columns do we have here? There's 6, right? And these are the 6 that I just mentioned. So since he doesn't put the column headings at the top, it may help you on the very first page to write down the things like what we've got here: present active, future active, aorist active, perfect passive, aorist passive, so that you can remember which principal part is which numbered column. So take a look here at what we have. How many tenses have you learned in Greek so far? 2, that's right. So the 2 that you know here are the present active and the future active. So take a look at these, and we want to just answer some questions here as we think about this. So we have Conozco and gnosomai. We have akuo and akuso. Notice here that there's a set of lines here. What does that tell us about this 5th principal part? You know what that means? That's right. That this form is unattested in the Greek New Testament. All the other forms for both of these verbs occur. It's not necessarily the first person singular form that occurs, but what they're saying is that this tense does occur in the Greek New Testament. Okay.
Does that word exist at all, or just not?
Just not in the New Testament. Okay. Now, what is the present stem of akuo? Take a look at akuo. How do you find out what the stem of a verb is? What do you do to get the stem? Okay, good. You drop the personal ending, and you have to drop one other thing too. The connecting vowel. Because it's the connecting vowel and the personal ending that you add to the stem to get the actual inflected form you're looking at, or looking for, or trying to create if you're creating words for the first time. So in terms of akuo then, there is no real personal ending, right? The me is not used, and the omicron, connecting vowel, lengthened. So if I strip all of that out, I'm left with aku right here. So what is the present stem of akuo? It's aku. Yes? All right. Now, what is the future active stem of akuo? The second principal part is always the first person singular of the indicative form for that tense and voice. So the future active stem of akuso is what? How do I find that? I strip off personal endings, connecting vowels, and tense formatives. Okay? So in this case, the future does have a tense formative. The present doesn't, so I don't take away the tense formatives because there's not one. The future has a tense formative as well as connecting vowels and personal endings. Take those off, and what am I left with? I'm left with aku. All right? So
would the connecting vowel be an epsilon, which makes the OU, so the stem ending would just be alpha, kappa, omicron?
no, the omicron upsilon here, that's not due to contraction. Okay? This is just part of the stem. Yeah. All right. Now, look at Conozco here. What is the present stem of Conozco? Okay, all right, excellent. We find it by going to the present active indicative, right, the first principal part, and chopping off personal ending and connecting vowels, and we're left with Conozco. So that is the present stem. What is the future stem of Conozco? Okay, what do you know about that? You strip off personal endings, connecting vowels, and tense formatives, and you're left with gno. All right. Now, here's another important question. Number 5. Are either of these verbs, Conozco and akuo, are either of them middle only in the present active indicative? How do you know that? Yeah, because when you see the omega, that's an active ending, isn't it? So I'm always looking for, in these active principal parts, I'm always looking for an omega first person singular ending if it has an active ending. So, are either of these middle only in the present active? The answer is no. 6. Are either of these verbs middle only in the future active? The answer to that question, are either of these middle only in the future active, is yes, right? How do I know that? Look at your future active. If it's active, I should be expecting in the future a sigma followed by an omega, right? That's the active first person singular ending. I have that with akuso. I don't have it with Conozco, do I? It's not gnoso, it's gnosamai. If I see the my ending where I should have an omega ending, that tells me that in that tense, it's middle only for the places where it should have been active. All right? So Conozco is the one that is middle only in the future active, or in what should have been the future active. How would you parse gnosamai? How would you parse that? Can you parse it as future active indicative? First singular? Can I call it active? No. Yeah, it's not active because it doesn't have the omega. So this is future middle. Okay? Future middle indicative for singular. Mounce would probably call this future deponent indicative. Okay? But this is a truly middle form. Now, one more question. How are you going to translate gnosamai? It's future. I will know. That's right. It's got to be future. And the subject performs the action if it's middle, right? In middle forms, the subject performs the action. I will know.
So, could be fancy and say, I shall know, right?
Yes, you could say I shall know. And that would actually be proper English. Yes.
Conozco is not a deponent verb in present.
Mm-hmm.
Stem becomes deponent in the future. We'll have to memorize both sort of lexical forms.
Yes, and especially because Conozco and gnosamai, there's variations in the stem. You'd also want to memorize those two for that reason.
That's why you drop the iota, because it's just a new stem form.
Yeah. The thing here that's important that you hopefully you're seeing from this little exercise is that this matter of what Mounce calls deponency and what I'm just calling the fact that some forms are middle only in some tenses. This is a feature that is a stem by stem thing. That is to say, deponency travels around with the stem. You can't say, oh, if it was quote unquote deponent in the present, that it therefore must be deponent in the future. That's not true. Not the case at all. All right. You have to learn which stems, which tense stems have this middle only feature. Okay.
Will verbs that are deponent in present normally be deponent in other tenses, or is there just no way of?
It's unpredictable.
Like,
Yeah. I mean, there often are correspondences, but they're not so frequently, going to match up that you can trust yourself to always assume it is that way. But one of your vocabulary words is erikamai, right? And what does that mean? Yep, I go or I come. The future is alusamai. I believe it's in chapter 20 that we really deal with that one. So that's the present. It's middle only. In the future, it's middle only. When we get to the aorist, which is one of the past tense forms, it's elthon. This is actually an active ending here. So in the first two tenses that you learn for that verb, they are middle only, and the third tense that you'll learn for it, it ends up being active and not middle only. So this is the aorist tense. Okay. So any questions about this?